Hey NAIA football fans, Cory here with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAIA fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. All right, NAI football fans, we are back. I am, I guess you could say my voice is a little ripped from the national championship game. We'll go with that. We are back with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft. You heard them, the best in the game. You don't need to hear me say it 24,000 times. You want to get to the action. Got Matt Schwartzler back. Matt, we have one of the best conferences in the nation and also the one that eats itself the most often tonight. We have the Frontier.
This is the best conference in the country to cover.
It's the most
Just say,
fun in
yeah.
terms of drama. One thing I do want to
Mhm.
point out before we actually get into the teams of the Frontier itself is that you will notice one team that will be playing this year that you'll be seeing playing a lot of Frontier teams, but is not yet a Frontier team. And that is Simpson, the new football team from Northern California, is coming online, and they are operating this year as an independent. So, Simpson fans, I have not forgotten you. Um, you'll love to see it getting the NAI into California. But as they're an independent, I didn't know where to put them, but they'll be going into the Frontier eventually. So I figured I'd mention them up front. So,
Certainly. And it's good to get California teams of any non D1 variety because they have just disappeared over the past however many years. So Simpson, welcome.
I know Northern Cal. No, is that NoCal? NorCal?
NorCal. Yeah.
I don't know. You're closer to that than I am.
Yeah. All my NorCal friends say NorCal.
All right,
So
we'll go. We'll run with it. Well, speaking of Northern, we're going to start off our preview with MSU Northern, the Lights. You know, it is when we do these, Matt. It's always interesting to see how the numbers change. In so much as MSU Northern is still the bottom dweller, they're still better than what they were last year, which baby steps. The offense is like a quarter of a yard per play better.
as long as you're going forward, you're still going forward. It doesn't matter how small or how long those strides are, you are still moving in the right direction. I think too for MSU Northern, this conference is so like we talk about, and we will mention 30 more times, it eats itself alive, and these conference games are just brutal, you know. So it's especially tough for a team like MSU Northern to get some momentum going, but they're still improving. They're still improving, which is a good sign.
I guess the big thing that we want to talk about and mention about MSU Northern is Dylan Wampler, who in 2022 was a first team All Frontier. This year, a second team All Frontier. But you're talking about a multiple time winner, All Conference, and he is taking it on down the road, um, which you hate to see it. You do bring back your punter, which when your punter is averaging 43.4 yards, that'll work as a weapon right there.
Absolutely. Being able to flip the field, especially for how inefficient the offense has been, definitely is a strength. And being able to return that sets you up in good positions. Obviously, Wampler being gone, like that is huge. That dude was the rock of that defense, and he has been for a while now. Um, So they're going to have to fill that spot, and they're going to have to fill it quickly. But on the bright side, they do return most of their defense in general, D line, linebackers, and DBs, all of them. And we're also looking at an offense that is experienced as they're bringing back all their running backs, most of their receivers, and a good chunk of their quarterback room.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing back Ashton Platt, who was, for the most part, your starter last year. It's I don't think we're going to see 2 yards per play again from this team, especially not where we had seen the growth last year. I think we'll be all right. So the team that I think bamboozled you last year, though, Matt, in the Frontier, was Arizona Christian. Was pretty good in the Sooner, and then just came over to the Frontier and struggled.
Yeah, I was just wrong about this Arizona Christian team. And it's unfortunate. I think the weather change played a much bigger factor than we anticipated for this team. Obviously, having to travel northbound instead of eastbound for most of their games, it's gonna do a toll on you. It's a lot more travel, especially in those fall and winter months. Offense was still the highlight of their team, but it was a frustrating watch with this squad last year.
Yeah, you're coming from a team that was top 10 in offense in 22 and dropping all the way to 59th. You'll lose, Moses Smith on your D line. The good news is that you bring back Nestor Higuera. We thought he was done. He's not done. The thicker kicker is back for one last run. You'll love to see it.
He's got one more in him.
He's got
He's got
one
one more
more.
in him.
He's got one more. And he wasn't officially an all conference player last year, but he was the year before, so we'll take it. And you bring back Cameron Tibbetts with 90 tackles last year. Here's really the thing that is going to be a problem, though. You return a very few of your quarterbacks. Johnny Herrera is kind of your leading starter, but you've got to figure out who's playing quarterback for you, and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, especially with the system that they run, it's a bit more plug and play. But with the big step back they took last year, who's to say how the rhythm of that offense looks compared to how it would have last offseason? There's a lot that you're not only going to have to consider, but probably rework as you get somebody new acclimated in there.
The good news is you do return a majority of your defense. Maybe you can lean on them, including most of your D line and most of your linebackers. So you may be able to lean on that defense a little bit more before your offense gets acclimated. But we'll see. I mean, it's an adjustment period for Arizona Christian. Next up on our list is a team that it bamboozled me a few years ago. So we'll go from you being bamboozled to me being bamboozled, and that's Eastern Oregon. They got me a few years ago. Eastern Oregon has just been very tricky for the last few years. Obviously, you're looking at a team who was dang near at parity offensively and defensively last year. 2/1000ths of a yard per play difference between the two.
Yeah, it this team every year, like in a wild card conference, Eastern Oregon feels like the wild card team of the wild card conference. It is just very weird every year. I I don't know, but they have a lot of going for them going into next season. I will say, obviously, the statistics are a bit better than their record would suggest. But you're bringing back Malachi Spurrier, you're bringing back Jason Grant, both on offense and defense staples of what you got going on. Your all conference punt returner Parker Robinson is also coming back, which is a huge win. Being able to have an efficient returner on special teams is a very undervalued thing, and I think that bringing him back, keeping that receiver room, experienced, fantastic for them.
Yeah, you talk about Malachi Spurrier. That's almost a 1,000-yard player last year. And for the fact that you return Quincy Glasper at your quarterback position means that you're going to be okay offensively. Um, you return most of everything everywhere at every skill position on your offense. You're going to be fine. You're just going to have to to figure out what's going with your defensive backs is you return a minority of those defensive backs. So somewhere between minority to us is somewhere between like 20 and 45-ish% of that position group is coming back. Um, and in this conference, yeah, you do have some guys that can chunk the ball, but you may be able to cover for that early with your D line coming back and your linebackers coming back. That you can cover for your DBs until you can get them ready to hit prime time. And then we hit the team that, I don't know, came out of nowhere. There seems to be a team that has come out of nowhere in both of ours so far. This last year, it was Southern Oregon. I I didn't expect this. I saw them surging late in the season and started to take notice. Obviously, they don't finish the way that you would want in terms of the record, but to me, this is a team that at 33rd in SP Plus with a 6-4 record, this screams a team that underperformed or under one against its performance, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. The sleeping giant it's rumbling a little bit. It's starting to rumble, it's starting to move around, it's starting to get loose,
And
wake up a little bit.
this is a team that was a national champion
Yeah.
not that long ago, like 2013,
Yeah.
2014 kind of era, and so when you say sleeping giant, you're not wrong. This used to be the one who ruled the roost.
Absolutely. And with the 20th ranked defense last year, I mean, you are starting to get into pretty borderline elite territory with what you got going on defense. And that is obviously led by your DB, Spencer. Is that Cuffle? Cuffle. It's one
We'll
U.
go with
It's
couple.
tripping you. Yep, Cuffle. And obviously, he was a first team all conference guy in your defensive backfield with 7 pass breakups, 6 interceptions, which, holy cow, that is incredible. And also on the offensive side of the ball, you got a receiver, a tight end, an O line, a lot of those key components in each of those position groups coming back.
Yeah, and I will mention they've actually, I think their spring game, quote unquote, was against Kwansei Gakuin. I cannot pronounce Japanese, so forgive me. In the Mills Bowl, brought over a team from Japan, and they did win 54-24, which is a pretty cool way to play a spring game. You know, Deshelle Smith, Brennan Stoltz split time at the quarterback position. Gunnar Yates, um, put up 145 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jackson Clemmer, as you see there, the returning tight end, the leading receiver, 2 receptions for 57 yards. So it's definitely, I mean, you can't sit here and say that playing a Japanese team in May is going to guarantee future performance. But those are live reps against a team that is at least breathing. So those that's a, I mean, it's great to be able to play some spring football in that atmosphere.
Absolutely. And it's very promising, that they're able to go out in off season form. There are new guys still figuring stuff out, people switching positions, and they're getting it done against another country's best. So that's, hey, can't really scoff at that.
And then just coming back, you've got a majority on both offense and defense. You're going to have to figure out what you're doing with your running backs. Obviously, we talked about, obviously, they might have figured it out, with a 4 touchdown performance. There's some pieces on the defense, like D line and DBs, that you're going to have to replace about half of those position groups. But this was a Southern Oregon team that, like I said, didn't win as much as the stats showed. You got to keep an eye on them for 2024. Well, the Frontier was just a cesspool of befuddlement for all of us. Carroll was my pick to win the division, and they had a good year, especially defensively. But you see how the yards per play. Now we're back under parity here. The seventh defense allowing almost 5 yards per play. The offense takes a step back with 4.76 yards per play, and they just couldn't quite get it put together. They had some good pieces and just couldn't get it put together down the stretch.
Yeah, the nice part is going into the season for Carroll, you bring a lot of that seventh ranked defense back. You're obviously bringing back two of your key D linemen, and Garrett Warden and Hunter Peck. You're also bringing back Tucker Jones, who's patrolling the middle of the field right there as a linebacker. And on the offensive side of the ball, you have a first team all conference tight end, which is a humongous tool to be able to use. And also Connor Quick holding it down on the O line, leading that position group coming back.
One thing you don't see on both the returning and leaving there, because they weren't all conference, but I think it's worth a mention. You do lose Duncan Kraft, who was good for 557 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. However, you're still bringing back Chris Ackleshan, who went for 13 yards per reception, almost on the dot, 728 yards. And so if Jack Perka can get it going through the air, look out, Carroll might be something. It's been a team over the last couple of years that's heavily relied on its running backs. So maybe with a couple of really good offensive pieces on the through the air side of the ball, the aerial attack, you might see a little difference here with the Saints. And I mean, you do return most of that defense. We talked about that defense. I mean, you're you return nearly all your linebackers. Like I think one might have graduated. Most of your DBs, most of your defensive line. You're talking about dang near everybody, along with a majority of that offense. You can't overlook Carroll, the NAIA royalty in 2024. Got to keep an eye on him. Matt, any other thoughts about Carroll?
They'll always be in it, man. It's hard every offseason to even consider counting them out, you know.
And with that, we are finished with the bottom half of the Frontier. We're going to step aside real quick and hear a word from our friends at AdCraft.
So you want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business. That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today, and let's bring your merch to life.
Absolutely. They do such a good job of it. We are so thrilled to continue to partner with AdCraft every year to get their product over into your hands. You've got to check them out, especially for their web stores. They do such a great job handling the customer service, making sure that you are able to concentrate on what you need to concentrate on, which is football. You don't need to be worrying about running a daggum store and all that good jazz. Concentrate on football. Let AdCraft take care of the other stuff there.
If Cory can do it, you can do it too.
Yeah,
Trust me.
if this Dumbo can do it, you can do it. I've done it a couple times here. It does feel weird to have Carroll on that side of the commercial. I
Very
will
weird.
admit, especially because they were ranked 30th in SP Plus, and well, Rocky Mountain's only at 29th. I mean, now,
Also with a worse conference record and overall
yeah.
record. So weird.
Look, the Frontier is an Ouroboros, and if you haven't watched Loki and seen the snake eating its tail, it's time to go catch up on your Marvel on Disney Plus, and all that stuff. That is honestly what the Frontier is: the snake eating its tail. Rocky Mountain knows that better than anyone. They had a really great year, just not able to make the playoffs. Had a great defense, just not quite good enough at times. And you do lose a couple pieces off of it, whether it's Ethan Hurst or Prince Johnson there off of that defense. You're talking about Johnson, who had 2 forced fumbles, Hurst, who had 10 tackles for loss and 5 sacks, and wide receiver Joseph Dwyer, who caught 868 yards worth of balls and 10 touchdowns. But you got to keep an eye defensively for Case and Barnett. 11 pass breakups and 4 picks. John Aragon, 9.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. I think you're going to be all right if you're Rocky Mountain.
Absolutely. You're returning your entire quarterback room, your entire running back room, and pretty much all of your receivers. This was an offense that we did see struggle at times, but again, being able to bring back experience into that room at the very least gives you a point of reference from the year before. And I think that there's a lot that they can work on. I mean, this team was so similar to Carroll at times, it hurt so bad. I thought I was just watching the same team in a green uniform. And that's, I mean, if you can improve even marginally on offense, you're going to be in a really good spot if you're Rocky Mountain.
I think that your offensive growth for Rocky can outpace any sort of defensive step back that you take. I think you can be in a better position by the end of the year.
Absolutely.
And then what's really weird about the Frontier, he said, is that you've got the 30th ranked SP Plus team and the 29th ranked SP Plus team, who were right there on the edge of 500 and did not make the playoffs. And then you've got the 25th ranked team in SP Plus, Montana Tech, who did make the playoffs and acquitted themselves nicely, although they did lose that first game to a very good Dickinson State team. Honestly, I'm just excited for their Week 0 game against Georgetown, getting hosted up in Montana. That's going to be a whole lot of fun between these two squads.
Absolutely. And this is an extremely balanced Montana Tech football team that we see at times both sides of the ball for them are able to kind of take over in these wins that they've gotten from last year. And if you flip the slide, you'll see that they have a whole lot coming back. And that is something to be very excited about for Montana Tech.
Yeah, and what this doesn't even show you is that you're also bringing back your 2,900-yard gunslinger from last year, Blake Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't show that you're bringing back 730-yard running back Lander Smith or a solid O-line piece in Max Anderson. So even though you've gotten Wyatt Alexander coming back, 1,109 yards, even though you've got Matt Whitcomb coming back with his pick and 5 pass breakups, Angel Sanchez with 7 pass breakups. Yeah, you are losing Blake Counts, but I think you're going to be okay here because you return most of that offense, that 25th ranked offense. You've got to figure out what you're doing on D-line, and you got to figure it out quick because Georgetown is coming. Georgetown loves to pound the rock. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to play that Georgetown run really, really fast with a D-line who might still be a little green.
Yeah, but I think that this is a team, too, that will be able to fill those gaps. I think this is a very well coached team. It shows in how balanced they are. Just had a couple games last year that didn't fall their way. I think this is a team to keep your eyes on in the national picture again. Um, and I think they can make some noise. They were very close to making noise in the playoff last year, and they played well in that game, anyways. So,
Coach Sampson does a great job over there. And then we go to Montana Western. For all the guys who are absolutely cranking it up on defense between Rocky Mountain and Carroll, Montana Western, the bastion of offense within the Frontier, almost 7 yards per play. You had a first-team quarterback in Michael Palandri, who, we were sitting here a year ago and going, you've got to figure out how you replace John Jund.
Mm-hmm. And Palandri has fit in very nicely, to put it simply.
Yeah, almost 3,000 yards.
Yeah, and that's also, Eli Norris is also coming back, and he's a 1,200-yard reception guy. He's a 12 touchdown guy. He's averaging 13.2 yards a reception. This dude's a weapon, and you got a weapon thrown to a weapon. That's an extensive artillery.
Yeah, got some ranged weaponry right there between that quarterback and wide receiver. Yeah, you're basically returning all of your offense there at every level. You've pretty much got everyone coming back. You just gotta you've got two D linemen and a linebacker that were all conference first teamers for you last year. You got to figure out, and if you can figure that out, man, you might be in like Flint. I don't know that I could call Montana Western after the last couple years a dark horse, honestly.
No, this team
Not with
is
this.
they've established they're at the front. They're leading the way. They're always in the conversation as of the past few years. This is a horrifying team if you're the rest of the conference.
But wait, there's more.
There's one more?
There's more.
How's that possible?
Yeah, you had the sixth ranked offense and the
Mm,
29th ranked defense, and you had Andy Peters who threw for over 3,000 yards, almost 3,500 yards, and ran for 840 yards. And you're going to have a bitter taste in your mouth because you got stopped 4 times inside the 5 against Kaiser.
mhm.
And uh, I'm just gonna put it out there. College of Idaho fans, that was the right call every single time. If you kick if you kick a field goal there, in my brain I'm going pansies. If you can't stuff it in from 4th and 1, don't play the game. You don't deserve to win.
It's all right. We didn't need Idaho fans, anyways.
I got on my Yote shirt.
Oh
I'm
wow, look at
representing the
you.
brand.
That's at least something to put on the wound. But
Look, that is if I am Brett Guysedden here, if I am uh, whoever's going to be playing running back, I actually think yeah, Alamar Alexander, I think is leaving there is what I've got there, but you have whoever's in behind him. That's what you're thinking about all summer. Is 4th and 1. And if I am a rising upperclassman, that helps me hit that extra rep. Because obviously, Kaiser hit that extra rep. I don't want to be there again if I'm College of Idaho. That's going to drive and fuel me. And honestly, with the defensive pieces, including country music superstar and first team running back or first team linebacker Willie Nelson, Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys over here. It's the NAIA. It's the Wild West. He can come back. I'm sure he's got eligibility.
yeah, I'm sure it's fine.
You return most of everything on both sides of the football. You're going to be fine. You're poised to make another run at it. And fueled by your hatred and by your remembrance of what happened last year, I think this is a team that will be solidly on a revenge tour this year.
Look, as somebody who has been in a tight end O line room, when you don't punch it in on 4th and 1 on the goal line and it costs you the game. I can guarantee that all offseason, this is all the O-line room has talked about. It is all their coaches have talked about. They've been screaming this at them in the weight room when they're doing conditioning, when they're messing up in spring ball. And at some point, you just got to be sick of hearing it. And this is a talented enough College of Idaho team to where they can do something about it. And I think that they are well equipped to do so.
So then, what does that mean for our picks? Well, to get all of our Idahoan fans back, I am picking College of Idaho to win. Cue the revenge tour. It's you're going back to back into the playoffs here. There's just too much coming back, and you've got a chip on your shoulder the size of the state. You're going to be fine. Matt?
So you remember how I accused you of losing our Idaho fan base?
Yep.
Might be me here. I got to go with Montana Western. Palandry can sling that thing, dude. And I am a fan of offenses that can get it done. And for me, the tipping point is that Idaho has most of their offense coming back, but Montana Western's got all of their offense coming back. And those couple players tipped the scales for me. I felt like this was a Montana Western team that should have been more in the national spotlight last year. They were very close as it was. And man, I just think they also are going to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder because they feel like they can compete with teams that were in the playoff last year. And it's hard for me to count these guys out. I've done it at times in the past couple seasons, and I got to put my foot down at some point. So I'm going Montana Western.
So where are you going then for your dark horse?
Well, I have a bit of a story. Okay, so last week I was on a work trip. For those that don't know, I'm an SID at a D2 school in Washington State, St. Martin's. It's awesome, love it. Went out to Idaho for NCAA softball regionals, and we're driving back. And if you're familiar with the Pacific Northwest, Nampa, Idaho, which is where we played, it's in the south side of Idaho. So to get back, we got to go through Oregon and then north, like from Portland up to Olympia. And you want to know where I drove past on our 8-hour bus ride home?
Where's that, Matt?
La Grande, Oregon. And you want to know who is in La Grande, Oregon?
Can you remind me? Is that
Eastern Oregon.
that
That's
would be on
Eastern.
the that would be
That'd
on
be
the
Eastern
eastern
Oregon.
side.
So I know that this Eastern Oregon team has been frustrating, hard to predict, and they were definitely towards the back end of this conference. I just have a hard time. The difference for me, I don't know if I can call Southern Oregon a dark horse in my brain, even though I like them a lot. I don't know why. I just can't quite justify it with them being a top 35 SP plus team. And I think this Eastern Oregon squad is going to be much more sneaky. With Southern Oregon, we saw many more flashes of what the team was capable of. Eastern Oregon is off the radar as of right now. So I really like them to flip the script, be a winning team, and knock some games off of these top teams like we see every year, at least once or twice in this conference.
Well, last year, my dark horse pick out of the Frontier was thoroughly successful, and so I am going to congratulate myself and pat myself on the back for a pick well done. My dark horse pick was Montana Tech. Saw it coming. Actually, Matt, you had them to win the whole conference. You had them on the vibes check.
Yeah, the vibes check almost worked out.
They made the playoffs. You were close.
Yeah, it was close enough. I mean, we can both hang our hat on that.
You mentioned that Southern Oregon was 35th in SP plus. Well, in the Frontier, that means there are 5 teams in front of you. So I can still call them a dark horse.
You can. That's the beauty of it. You can have your criteria, I can have mine, and that can be totally fine.
You're talking about a team who was nearly 500 last year, showed some signs of life, and I'm going to jump on the bandwagon here. You beat a Japanese team by 30. Let's go, baby. Let's ride. Look, you've got
the Giants rumbling, man.
The Giants rumbling.
Giants rumbling.
He's starting to turn over a little bit. We'll see. I mean, look, the good news here is where we talk about the frontier. You've got Dickinson State, you've got Simpson that are going to be coming in. You're going to be hitting 12 teams at some point. And that's really, really good news if you're the frontier, because that allows you to split into two divisions. That allows you to not always eat yourself. That allows you to not play teams twice. That also means that you can get really cozy with the idea last year where you took this huge step forward and you put two teams into, three teams into the the playoffs. That's huge. It's the same that the GPAC did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, no, you didn't go to the national championship game, but look, three teams. A full seventh was Frontier, and this is and you got to host one, and this is where the Frontiers wanted to be now for more than a few years. If only we could get to host one. If only we could get multiple teams in, maybe we get a little bit more respect. And honestly, I think now the Frontier has gone and earned that respect. So, what does that mean for our strength of conference? Well, y'all saw it last week. I'd already done the numbers for the Frontier. The Frontier is a full 23 spots better than the AAC, which tracks.
Definitely tracks.
But that's arithmetic mean. The Frontier might be saying, yeah, but we're a lot closer together. No, you're not. No, you're not. Not quite.
The snake will keep eating its tail, man.
The snake will keep eating its tail. The Frontier is tough. It is together. And for right now, that means the Frontier is winning. We will get through all the divisions, and we will figure this out. But for right now, the Frontier reigns supreme. They are one of two. But keep it locked in here. We are gonna have some fun. I think I might give Matt a week off from previews. Get Liz Sowers in here from the back to back 4-time Ottawa Braves flag football champions. Matt, that's the first time in NAIA history that anyone has won 4 consecutive championships in a sport. That is utter dominance right there.
Utter dominance, and not to mention that this was an Ottawa flag football team that had their struggles this year. It's like even more impressive that they got it done.
And got it done convincingly. The first 3 of those were tight matchups going down to the wire. This one, Ottawa dominated from the first snap, and it was their championship. And Kaiser was just there for the vibes. Unfortunately, we thought Kaiser might have had a chance. They looked the part all year, but Ottawa in the playoffs, man, it's just like LC State for baseball. You get them in the playoffs, they're a completely different animal. That's Ottawa in the national tournament. And we'll get them on. We'll get our postseason stuff with me and Angelo, and we'll be back to it. But the guys who are our championship material, well, that's going to be our patrons. You telegraph that curve long enough, Matt sees it coming.
I suppose. Eventually you leave one over the plate, and it's somebody's going to take a hack at it, right?
Yeah, I just keep throwing up meatballs. But our patrons are the best. They keep us going. They fund our trips out to the national championship game. Yes, even though I called for NFL, um, I still had to pay for my hotel that first day that we were going, because that 8 a.m. Warner Milligan game was yeah, that was early. I felt like I was back in college, Matt. And did you have that 8 a.m. class mistake that you made in college?
Oh, dude, I had an 8 a.m. like almost every semester, dude.
You were stupid enough
I
to repeat your mistake.
I was that guy because I look for football. You're already up early. It's like why break that? But it was annoying some days.
I had an 8 a.m. calculus class. My
Oh,
first
oh, dude.
my
See, I
first
was a business
semester.
major, so my 8 a.m. is like coloring or whatever. So I
Yeah.
can manage that half asleep.
I had calc. That was an utter mistake.
That
But
yeah, that's
I never did that again. I got to be in that class and I was happy. Um, but yeah, getting up at 8 a.m. It's our patrons that make stuff like that possible. That enable us to be able to go on the road and do this sort of thing. So patreon.com/NAIF ball. Please support what we do if you enjoy our coverage. These guys are the backbone. And they are DSU Cone, Bob Boone, Roger Meyer, Jeremy Bobble, Shirley LaBella, Fred Christensen, Jerry Quickle, Ace Wellen, Brett, Marty Seabolt, Nick Ryan, Hayden Ferrigno, Kyle Gregory, Tyler Pierce, Justin Hoffman, Steve Speakman, Brian Shake, Julian Shager, Nate Soapbeer, Steve. and now I'm going to cough because I
you
breathed
got.
in too deeply. Good grief. I'm also having allergy issues, guys, behind the curtain. Stephen Cutler, Julie Loud, Dale Norton. Did I mention Nate Soapbeer? If not, I'll do it again. Nate Soapbeer, The Rowdy Raven Experience. Nathan Moore, Dylan Gonzalez, Ryan, Jason Crawford, Dustin Wilkie, Charles A. Flowers, Todd Nick, Sean Chamberlain, Debbie Zach Lance, and Josue Trujillo. Got it
You gonna
done.
make it?
It's a struggle some days, but we'll be back with another preview podcast. It won't be long. Keep it locked in here. So Frontier is going to be fun, but we got a long way to go and a short time to get there, don't we, Matt?
Yeah, it's gonna sneak up on us. Does
Absolutely,
every year.
absolutely. So with that, we will see y'all next week. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA. Be sure to contact them for all your custom apparel, merch, and uniform needs. Thanks also to our newest sponsor, Telemetry Sports. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe to the podcast and to our YouTube channel, and leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. As always, if you'd like to support what we do, head over to patreon.com/NAIAF Ball and
You hit
become a
record this
patron.
time.
We can't do what we do without our sponsors and listeners like you.